Hey, thank you so much for tapping in here this afternoon. My name is Heidi Kristensen, one of the partners in BestBrains Academy, and been working a lot around scaling for many, many years, and now very much into the AI domain as well. I've been a director in Schneider Electric for a software department, and before that worked in Nordea for many years. But lately, this is what I'm doing full time. And maybe Jesper, just a couple of words on you.
Yes, I've worked with a lot of different things, product development mainly, and within the IT industry. And as a consultant here and trainer in BestBrains Academy, I've helped a lot of teams using agile methodologies.
So if we should just say a couple of words on what you have in front of you here. So Jesper and I have put something together. The reason why Jesper and I are talking a lot about this now is that we've been working with teaching agile teams how we can organize in organizations for a long time. And then when this AI thingy came up, we got more and more curious about how can we use it? Because we see so much about that people are starting to use AI more and more, but very much individually. So we're very curious about how can we help the different roles to take on AI, but also in a team context. And one of the circumstances to get that really working well is that we have leadership on board. So leadership understand what it takes and also can help create the possibilities in the organization. Because I'm sure all of you, wherever you are, might know that it can sometimes be challenging to get it all up and running. So that's one of the reasons why we have focused much more into AI and why we want to talk about it today with the perspective on leaders and leadership and how you can use it on your own, but also for the organization. So what I want to just emphasize around is a little bit about how fast it's going. This graph is actually quite old now. It's from January 23. When ChatGPT came out, it reached 100 million users in just 2 months. That was way faster than any of the other very popular apps, or like you see here on the screen. So something about the interest in it and the pace that already started to pay attention at that time. Then maybe looking at it even more now, where are we then? We are for sure on an acceleration curve. And whether we're on the turning point or even a little bit above it is probably the question. We've had a lot of technological changes, revolutions early on, where companies had to adapt. We had to become digital and figure out how to do that to survive. And for sure, this is what we're looking into now with AI. And somewhere around the tipping point, or actually just a little bit above it, is what we're looking into right now. An interesting thing just to pay attention to and the pace it's going is from OpenAI. They have made this 5-level artificial general intelligence scale, talking about the future. Where will we go? Where are we today? So level 1 is what we know from ChatGPTs, if you're familiar with that. But that's level 1, and this was all introduced in July 2024. And it's funny, just in August, I remember Jesper presenting this on one of these calls and talking about that this is where we were at that time. And if we move on, then already after that, then we also on these calls been talking about, now we're on level 2 as well, because now AI can start solve these more basic problems like PhD with various tools and so on. So the evolvement has already taken place there. Then level 3 is about agents, where we can create AI agents that on their own can take action and set something up and do something without human interaction. And that's actually what we're starting now to see with the latest version of ChatGPT 4.5 is that's already there as well. So the pace is something at least I have never been presenting on a topic before that we are looking into here. Then level 4 is where we talk about AI that can create new innovations, building on what they can do on the agents, and then really start to come up with things that we can't even imagine. And level 5 is when AI can perform the work of an entire organization of people. Will we reach there? We don't know. But it's pointing in that direction, and the pace of it is also pointing at that could easily happen. So Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he predicts that within 5 years, this could be something we have. Others are talking about it could be up to 50 years, but that's the different perspectives. But for sure, we can now look at this and say, okay, we have evolved in half a year's time from level 1 till 2 till 3, and we will see if it stalls or not. But at least the opportunities and possibilities, they are continuously growing here.
How did AI impact our own work here in BestBrains Academy? Well, we are working with teams, as you probably know. We're working in a team context with different roles. Usually it could be a product owner, developer, tester, UX, Scrum Master perhaps, and also a manager, ensuring that this team is working well. And what if we put AI into this picture? Well, we have a term called AI Orchestration that we like to use in terms of how you can create a picture of how we can use AI within a team. So AI assistants can be used for many different things, actually. And AI assistants are also different. So we could have a commercial one like ChatGPT. Sometimes it's costly. We could have one that can change text to image. We could have one specialized for coding. We can also get these things open source for free. They are becoming better and better, actually, that can also compete with the commercial versions of AI assistants. Like this, we could have many different assistants that actually help the team. AI orchestration is then to figure out what is the good way of interacting with these AI assistants within the team. And we can use tools for that. We can get the tools to use AI. We can integrate AI assistants into our own tools. So there's actually a lot of different ways to enable a team with this AI orchestration. And that is about establishing processes, collaboration between human and AI through all of these tools. And what is one important thing we always keep in mind is that we have to have human in the loop. So this is not just a kind of a matter of replacing team members. It's actually more about enabling team members and enabling teams to be more effective and achieve more. Human in the loop actually comes from a set of principles that we have coined and described that also can guide us in terms of how we can use AI in an organization and also in a team. So what are those principles about, Heidi?
Yeah, exactly. So we've come up with 4 principles to continuously guide us to check in if what we're working with. You heard me talk about the acceleration of this before, and I'm sure you recognize it as well in your surroundings. So to hold on to some principles that doesn't change at the same pace, but can keep us there on a focus. And we have very much inspired by Ethan Mollick. We have come up with these 4 principles that you see here, and I'll just add a couple of words to each one of them on the following slides here. So the first one, use AI everywhere, is really something to take with you, to remember to experiment, to learn and understand so that you can figure out, okay, how can I use it? We've seen that in our company, that we have gone from being a little bit reluctant to this to now that we share a lot with each other that we have experimented with. So I think it's like getting to know a new tool, a tool that keeps evolving all the time. So therefore also keep experimenting, not just thinking, done it, now I know how it works, but be part of having it as a principle to remind yourself to use it everywhere. See if you can use it and learn from that. Also, so you learn how it can assist you and also where it can work against you. And then like Jesper already mentioned a little bit before, human in the loop, acknowledging that AI works best with human help. We need our human judgment and expertise. So it's for us to judge when the help we're getting is useful, when it's not, based on the expertise we have. Bullet number 3 is an important one, is to remember that it's all geared up to make us happy beats being accurate. So if the AI you're using can't give you the right answer, it will gladly just come up with an answer, and it can sound very convincing that it's plausible what's coming up. So bear that in mind so that you are on top of what comes out of this. So by that, really put being human into play. Maybe this is a chance for all of us to open up even more for what it means to be human and use those skills. If we could have AI to help us just do things, and then we can start playing around with that. So human in the loop is our second principle. And the third one is treat AI as a person. So think of it, what kind of role it is you're using it for. It could be as an intern, so the kind of person that runs around and is very eager to help, sometimes maybe make too much work that is not exactly the useful work because they don't know better, but they're very, very eager to produce. It could also be as a co-worker, very much what Jesper was showing before. It could be as a teacher, so when you need to dive into an area, it can teach you something, or it can coach you. It can be your coach, and we will have a couple of examples of that later on as well. So how can we actually use it for that? But having this principle to remind us what kind of persona is it we're using it for at different interactions. And then finally, number 4, be responsible. So all of these possibilities goes very much with a huge responsibility. So both around ethical design, so we're not biased in how we're doing things, that it's transparent and explainable, so we know how we come up with the suggestions or solutions to make sure that it follows ethical designs, that it also follows, we have our security in place and so on. Accountability, that we can count on it, and governance around the whole setup. We have also put sustainability into this so that we have some awareness and understanding of what it takes. How can it support us without destroying our planet or wasting our resources?
We also want to practice a little bit here. So now we have a small exercise. First, a little tip actually about prompt technique. And this is a prompt we're going to use in a few seconds. And this is a prompt that generates another prompt. So it's actually a 2-level or 2-step process of creating a prompt. So let's break it down a little bit so we understand what it is. So I'm putting a role. First, I'm a manager, have a challenging situation in my organization, but first write a prompt that I can use to get help from an AI assistant. So I actually instructed to first give me a prompt. I'm not prompting it directly, but I also said that I want to dive into these topics here, my approach as a leader, understanding employees' concern and so forth, implementation approach. You're going to use this prompt on one of these leadership scenarios. You have to choose in a few seconds between one of these scenarios that could resemble what you experience in your own working situation. Something about job anxiety due to AI adoption, conflict between team members, resistance to AI adoption, low team member morale or engagement, handling a high performer with a negative attitude. Perhaps you've experienced some of these scenarios or something similar. So you just have to pick one of them. And now I'm going to try to guide you through a little bit of prompting here. So first of all, choose one of the scenarios and copy it and paste it into the AI assistant. Hopefully it should wait a little bit because I've told it here to wait for instructions. It could be that it writes a little bit, I'm ready for doing something. That should be okay. When you have done that, then copy the other prompt that we just saw here and execute it. That was this one. To take this prompt, copy it, execute it, and then it should return a new prompt and ask you, well, what about this? Should we adjust it or anything? And if you like it, then you can just write execute the prompt. And if you can see the new prompt that it has generated is kind of adjusted for the scenario that you just chose. When you've done that, then look at the output from the executing the prompt, the generated prompt. That might take a few minutes. Perhaps find some interesting aspects of this output. So what did you experience here? Anything you could use? Is it totally gibberish? We don't know if you succeeded with the 2-level prompting here. It's a little bit of a technique you have to learn, but we just talked here in the big room You should try it out. It's really a good way to get the most out of your assistant. But we could just hear briefly from some of you. Could you use this output for anything?
Yeah, we agreed that I think none of us have used this execute the prompt as a follow-up to the initial response from the AI assistant. And that was working surprisingly well. It seemed like the AI assistant, I used Perplexity, from coming up with a suggestion, and suddenly went into the role of the manager saying, let's do this, now we are going to do this and that.
Yes, nice to hear. What about room 2? Could you use it for anything?
Absolutely. I think it was very useful. And also asking follow-up questions to get different perspectives on it. Yeah, absolutely useful.
Let's move on. What are some strategies we need to consider when we have AI in our organization?
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit about AI leadership, how to get going, what to do if we really want to roll this out in our organizations or within teams. So recommendation from our side is a 3-step here, with really being clear around setting the vision, then how to drive the execution of this, and finally having the findings and the learnings, and then leading with responsibility, like I also mentioned in our 4th principle before, really making sure that is taking into concern in everything we do. We just open up these 3 topics just a little bit. Like we put in here, AI is not a tool, just a tool. It's a transformation. Like we're all doing right now here on this call as well. Oh yeah, we're learning something. It's a tool, but it's also starting to give us maybe some inspiration for something. Oh, we could also do it like this, or we could evolve somehow. And therefore, it's not just one tool and one way to do it, but it's leading into a transformation to really take this on board. So with that, really define some clear goals. What is it we want to achieve, so that we can also measure along if we are moving in that direction. And then foster a culture of AI curiosity. So having an open mind to it, this is a huge change. And what we already see is that for many, it's also a change that gets even closer to what is my job going to be like in the future, and the anxiety that can come with that, for example. So really having an eye as a leader on the culture that we want to have around this, and a lot of psychological safety and so on to make sure that we have the right environment for it. So once the vision is set, we want to start to drive the execution. How do we go from idea to impact? So really here, we're really using our agile toolbox and thinking a lot around start small and iterate fast. So there's the small learnings, the continuous experiments that we want to try and do, and then we want to measure on it when we do it. And then we want to roll it out, maybe create a playbook that we share with everyone else in our organization, so it evolves over time. It is key. So the scaling part will come iteratively, that we try more and more things out and then learn from that. So I think both the experimentation is key, but also the measuring. What is it we measure? Does it follow what we have set up for requirements? So we're not biased, so we have security in place and all of these things, but in a way that doesn't hinder the pace that we would like to move along. If some of you are familiar with Henrik Niebuhr, he's just written his book around the AI in a nutshell, and he's pointing towards assign an AI leader. So have someone give them a role to be the responsible one to have this transformation going in the organization. Have someone who also is given the time to orchestrate all of this, because I'm sure you can recognize sometimes that we know all these possibilities, but how do we take our time to get to know it and learn all about it is what takes time. And therefore, recommendation could be also to have someone in the role, and then of course to engage with everyone. But that's around driving the execution. So the small iterative steps, experimenting, measuring on, learning from it, and then adopting and scaling it, adjusting it, whatever makes sense with the findings we do. And to do that, the third part here is really about leading with responsibility. So here we're really tapping into the leadership on board to make sure that they understand and learn and are capable of using all of this themselves and understand what it takes, but also to help set up an environment with trust, and then making sure transparency and governance is driving driving this, not killing it, but driving it. So that's the balance. And I believe this is where we really need to figure out new ways of doing it in many larger organizations, because we cannot keep with the sometimes a little bit slow pace that we see many places where we need to get approvals before we can do something new. It will, before we get the approvals in that way, the tools are probably already outdated. So there's interesting work coming up here, how we shape our organizations to take care of all of this, to give us the possibilities. And then here we put in a reference just for governing AI for humanity. That was UN Nation made this last year in September, with a ton of guidelines for how they recommend that we govern all of this. There are other recommendations out there also from the EU, but all in all, to have someone mentioning the AI leader before, also having someone set a group aside to really help with all the governance that we need to have in place. So AI leadership, it's about having the vision, putting the actions behind it in a responsible way. So remembering that leading this adoption with purpose is not just a tool. We want to drive it with agility, small iterative steps all the time, and then the responsibility with ethics and all the other things mentioned. I think we are very closely heading up for a break. So before we do that, this will only require a minute and so. This is a possibility to do something very human. So I would like to invite you for a second to take a deep breath. If you feel like it, feel free to close your eyes or just relax your eyes at least, maybe stare away from the screen and take breath again, all the way down in your stomach. Feel the chair you're sitting on. Feel your feet touching the ground. Maybe notice your shoulders, if they can relax a little bit more. Have them hang loose. And once more, take a deep breath down your stomach. And exhale. And remind yourself what it feels like to be human. And take that feeling with you into the break that's coming up now. So 10 minutes break, and I hope you will use it for the best possible way of being a human. Stay with us and we will come up with some more tips and tricks. So welcome back. I collected a couple of, I call it AI use cases in management, but I just want to share with you a couple of things that I've been doing when exploring with this. I use ChatGPT quite a lot when it comes to talking to a chatbot. A lot of the other variations are better at other things, but for now, that's at least where I've benefited a lot. And saying that, I often talk to my ChatGPT, and I do it in various settings. And I want to just share with you one of the things that I am sometimes doing. So like you can see here, a ton of different use cases. We already looked at some of them, but one of them, one day I was walking, I was actually doing some ironing of clothes. I normally don't do that, but I was doing it one day when I was exploring a little bit of this and talking to my ChatGPT, and I thought about empathy. And I wondered if it could help me if I wanted to practice getting better at my using empathy when talking to, for example, employees. So what we came up to together was we agreed that we could practice. So it asked me if I wanted to practice with my ChatGPT. So it came up with a scenario like you see here. We have a team member, Alex, who's been working extra hours and so on, and having a hard time with that. And the whole point in what I want to share with you is then ChatGPT asked me, so it said to me, so it's your turn. So how would you as a leader respond to Alex to show empathy? Feel free to share what you might say or how you approach this conversation. And remember, this is while I'm doing other things in the house or out for a walk or whatever. So my reply here was, okay, so I said, I see, so I'm talking to Alex, I see you've been working a lot lately, so maybe together we could try and figure out a new approach for you so you don't feel overwhelmed with work. curious to see what my ChatGPT replied to me. So I got a response. So it told me it was a good response. So you're acknowledging Alex's efforts and the stress they're feeling, which is an important part of empathy. By saying, I see you've been working a lot lately, you recognize their hard work, which helps them feel seen and heard. And then it continues. To deepen the empathetic connection, you might add a bit more to validate their emotions. For example, you could say, it's completely understandable to feel overwhelmed when you're putting in so much effort. This shows you are not only acknowledging their situation, but also emphasizing with how they're feeling. Then moving on to a supportive stance like you did with maybe together we could try and figure out a new approach is perfect. It demonstrates that you are there to help them find a solution as a team rather than putting the burden on them alone. So I thought that was quite a good answer. And to be honest, I felt good as well because I seem to have kind of nailed it. So I tried, let's give it a go. Let's try another one. So it came up with another scenario for me, saying, you noticed that another team member, Jamie, has been quieter than usual in meetings and their recent work hasn't been up to their usual standards. So when you ask how things are going, Jamie hesitates, but eventually says, I've been struggling to focus lately. There's just so much going on and I feel like I'm falling behind. So the ChatGPT asks me to come with something here. So how would you respond to Jamie to show empathy and support in this situation? So I'm in the middle of doing my things and my reply, so taking as it was, is here. So I'm trying to come up with something. So I've noticed as well that you seem to have a hard time focusing. And from what you're telling me, should we together have a talk about how I can support you? And feedback from ChatGPT is that's a solid start. So not as impressive as before, but again, honest. So you're showing Jamie that you notice their struggle, which can help them feel seen and understood. Your suggestion to talk together about how you can support them is a great way to offer help without being overly directive. To enhance the empathy in your response, you could include a little more validation of Jamie's feelings. So now it starts coming with suggestions on how I could do better. Then it follows up with also gives me what I could do then to sort of wrap it up. And if I just move on here, it asks me if I want to try again. So in this case here, it came with some suggestions on how I could improve and maybe do a better example than I just came up with before. Remember, I'm just talking to it here. So then I tried again and took in what it said, tried to come up with a different approach, and once again got some feedback. So now it was an excellent response. So Heidi's happy, listening, open to all the feedback here. And then I got more feedback and more feedback. So all the details here is not the point, but what I want to pass on here is just how easy that was for me. I was talking to it, so it didn't require what we often experience, a ton of text, and we have to sort of dig into before we can sort of take it in. This was just me in a situation, walking around, practicing some scenarios and talking. And I was quite impressed how well it also could take in something like empathy, quite a human skill. So that for inspiration. Yeah, Erik?
Yeah, it is a good inspiration, exactly for inspiration. That's what you need to remember. Because if you have a little difficulty already in having to address, let's say, personal stuff that requires a lot of empathy and so on, then this should only be, as you say, inspiration, inspire. It should only inspire you if you're lost of ideas, right? So that's the good idea here.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a comment.
Yeah. It is something quite differently, but I just wanted to share again how quickly also to get some ideas like for personal development. So I thought if I as a leader wants to develop, or me as whatever kind of role, we can seek a lot of ideas on how we can do that. But one way that I just want to share with you that I just did for fun, that maybe could inspire you, could be like this one here. Going on your LinkedIn and doing that, going down here in resources, and by that, save to PDF. So just download your profile in LinkedIn, and then straight after that, go and ask, in this case, ChatGPT, could be whoever, give it a prompt. How can I evolve my leadership skills? Like Jesper showed us before, we could make a much better prompt than that, but just to again see how quick can we actually get going with something. So this is the profile that I have from LinkedIn. Just one click and I have it. And let's see if it gives me something useful. So based on what I have on LinkedIn, which isn't that much, but just for idea, here we go. Already starting to give me some good ideas on how I could build on to what I have. Emotional intelligence, I could maybe look more into, lead with mindfulness and stress management, my coaching approach, and so on. Well, I just want to, again, just inspire to hear. So what about if I ask it, make an action plan for the next 6 months. Give it a go, because now we're curious, right? But here we are. Yeah. But what I thought was quite cool, I did this earlier, and it really came up with a lot of clear ideas on what I could do, when I could do it. And this is my development plan, so it was not as much the details here, but just for an inspiration, for fun for yourself. Maybe try and tweak it, and then use the prompt, and then maybe very quickly you could get new ideas on something you could do. All right, that was just another little one here. With that said, I think Jesper, a little bit around leadership.
So let's try to put it into play here with some more prompting. So now we want you to choose a scenario from your own context that you think you could get some help from AI. And if you write a prompt, you could also use the previous prompt we just used by adjusting it a little bit. I'll explain that. Execute the prompt and see if you can get some interesting output from a scenario from your own context. You can take one of the scenarios and then perhaps tweak it a little bit and write your own scenario. And then after that, take the prompt from previously. That's kind of a quick way to do it. And then use that prompt again to create a new prompt and then execute the prompt. So it's a 2-level prompting technique here. So you want to just ask, so what are these stars here? Sometimes it can help the AI assistant to know that it's kind of a headline, that it's kind of a small instruction for it. I tried it, some different versions of it. It's not always bulletproof, you could say, but sometimes you can improve how it understands your prompting if you use a little bit of formatting in your prompt. We could start with Helene.
Yes, I can share. I made an example for myself, and that was, how can I, as a Scrum Master, encourage my team members to want to attend the Agile events with the frequency described in the method? And it came back with a lot of good ideas. And actually, one of them was actually that the facilitation should be passed around in the team for some of the events. I hadn't thought about that one for the retrospective. So AI gave me a new idea. And otherwise, I haven't read through all of it, but I think it was some really good input.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Well, I was prompting about some of the our business strategies instead, like thinking about what are the dilemmas and challenges seen from a business finance perspective on concerns between balancing local flexibility versus global efficiency as well. So that came up with some good ideas about how can we, what are the key concerns seen from an IT or digital delivery. For example, user experience could be different because given that if you approach a local organization from a finance operations, and then sometimes we also have these global business centers that or support centers, and they might experience different service or different process, and that also changes their way of servicing, and that could lead to potential efficiency enhancements, right? So I'm prompting it from a strategic perspective about how to balance local flexibility in that sense. Yeah. Pretty good reply that I got, and got me thinking of how to communicate or relate it back to some of our leaders in the finance organization.
Yes, it can get you to think, right? And get a broader perspective. Yes, Tatiana.
After executing the prompt, and I can find some very useful points what I would never have thought about to do. But in general, what I have got, it is clear communication strategies, how to communicate the problem and how to deal with it. It's helping just with reflection of the communication styles and the communication strategies. And some practical things that I would have never thought of doing myself. So there is a good idea to ask. This was Gemini, so it was pretty good instruction. I liked it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So anyone else?
A short one is that actually you should practice on asking questions. The learning curve here is more to figure out what questions do I need to ask, actually. You can also use AI for that. If you kind of, so it's kind of a chit chat, forth and back. I'm struggling with some idea on leadership, management, whatever, with the problem of what am I missing? You could actually write your own thoughts. And then suddenly a little after then you can use the useful technique of can you write me a prompt? And then the prompt will give you even more. That's the fun part about it.
Exactly. The 2-level prompting will give you even more perspectives and explore. You don't even need to write all this stuff down here. That's just something I have included to guide it a little bit about what topics I want to dive into. But you could also just say what are relevant topic within this situation. Give me a prompt.
Exactly. Because already here you're limiting yourself. If you want to gain something from all knowledge of a database, then you should just set the bar very high. Then it will write whatever you have in the regarding, as you pointed down there, and then you can pick out the stuff, right?
Exactly. So perhaps you learned a little bit of a new prompting technique, hopefully that you can take home and use.
Yes. And maybe also that was our first principle I mentioned before, actually. Use AI everywhere, or at least have that mindset of maybe we could try it out and it could come up with something we haven't thought of.
Can we also use it for building a roadmap? Sure. So let's try that as the last thing we'll do today. An AI transformation roadmap. What kind of scenario are we in here, Heidi?
So I just thought of one, and I tried to sort of write an overall epic on what could an AI transformation look like if I had 5 agile teams where we really wanted to drive this AI transformation to achieve innovation and efficiency. So there are many ways we could come up. We've looked a lot on the chatbots and come up with ideas. But I know that Jesper, you're using a tool as well, also when exploring how to break down products into features and making story maps out of that. And maybe that could help us.
We could try at least. So. This is a small tool I've used for some time, stories on a board. So it's actually meant for product development to take epics and break it into features and stories and so forth. We were kind of thinking perhaps we can also use it for road mapping. Let's try that and see what it comes up with. So the way you use this tool is that you can create something called a story map. A story map is an overall picture of typically a product, but here we want to make a roadmap with about an AI transformation. And we can create it with AI. So they have built AI into this tool. I have to give it a name, and then I'll just paste in the description that we just saw here. So let's see what happens here. So it's reading my prompt, you could say my input, and what it kind of does is that it's breaking it into smaller steps, and there's a little bit of sequence. Hopefully you can also see here. I would assume that it actually understands a little bit about the context here and can see what are the details of each of these steps. Have to train teams in AI tools, evaluate AI tools, training programs, governance frameworks, monitor compliance, communicate an AI vision. So we can see that it actually catches on a lot of these concepts that we put into the very broad description, I would say. So is this a finished roadmap? Can we just press execute? What do you think, Heidi?
Maybe we need some rounds, but inspiration, right? And a very fast way to get us going and start having a dialogue instead of coming up with all of this ourselves.
We could also have used a workshop, you could say, 1.5 an hour to kind of see if we can find some of these activities. But this is also would be a good starting point, actually. So
could you try to open one of the story cards just for fun? See what
yes. So which one do you want me to open?
Doesn't matter.
Develop training materials. So let's look at this. As a training coordinator, I want to develop training materials for AI tools so that a team member can learn how to use them effectively. I could also add some acceptance criteria on this. This is kind of now a story. So even the acceptance criteria, perhaps it's not that specific about AI tools, but it knows that it's training material. Yes, it could also help me dive into the details of each of these cards here. This was actually what we had for you today. We have given you some inspiration, hopefully, how you can use AI within a leadership context with some prompting, with some inspiration about how you can use it for empathy, your own development, and also creating a roadmap. So we are using AI a lot these days, wouldn't you say, Heidi?
I would say, yeah.
And we are really trying to practice the principles of using it everywhere. So what we want to share also with you and all the people in our community is how you can use it in different roles. Typically roles within the Agile setup. We have free events coming up about the team coach, the Scrum Master. We also have courses, which are one-day online courses where we dive more into prompting, more into different techniques and methodologies and use cases, both for Scrum Masters and also for managers. In May, we have an online course where, as we did today, we'll dive even more into the areas of how you can use it for leadership. So we are just scratching the surface here. The team is also a very specific focus for us as practitioners in working with collaborative teams. So we also have some ideas and some cases where we use that. Finally, if you want to build Lego in the autumn, you can also join us here. And here we will explore how you can use AI building Lego. Do you think you can use AI for building Lego? We'll find out.
In August, we'll know.
Yes.
Well, then, thanks for your time. See you around.
See you around.
Yeah.